TikTok, with 170 million American users, is at the center of a historic split. President Donald Trump is set to sign an order separating it from ByteDance. Oracle, Silver Lake, and US investors will take control of its operations. For Beijing and Washington, the deal is more than business, it's leverage. At stake is the future of data, influence, and digital sovereignty. President Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order this week, approving a deal to separate TikTok's US operations from its Chinese parent, ByteDance. The agreement follows a 2024 US law requiring the app to divest or face a shutdown by January 2025. Under the plan, ByteDance will retain less than 20% ownership, while control of TikTok US shifts to a coalition of American and global investors with no ties to ByteDance. Oracle and private equity firm Silver Lake are central players, joined by high-profile business leaders including Larry Ellison, Michael Dell, and Lachlan Murdoch. A key element of the deal is Project Texas, designed to secure American user data. All US information will be stored on Oracle's cloud servers, while TikTok's recommendation algorithm will be copied and retrained with American data. Oracle will oversee audits to ensure compliance with national security requirements. White House officials emphasized that the government will not hold a golden share or board seat in the new entity. Instead, a 120-day enforcement pause will allow the transaction to close and investors to finalize the ownership structure. While the administration believes China has signed off, additional approvals are still pending. Analysts caution that changes to TikTok's algorithm and policies could reshape user experiences and affect creators, brands, and investors alike. If completed, the divestment would mark a rare breakthrough in US-China negotiations over technology, data security, and national interests, setting a new precedent for how global platforms operate in the American market. China, once sharply critical of US efforts to force a sale of TikTok, is now signaling openness to talks on how ByteDance might give up its American operations. The shift suggests Beijing may see the platform less as a national treasure than as leverage in a broader negotiation. Analysts note that TikTok, with more than 170 million US users, has become too significant to ignore in trade and geopolitical discussions. The crux of the negotiations lies in TikTok's recommendation algorithm, the technology credited with fueling the platform's rise. Chinese export controls introduced in 2020 restrict the transfer of sensitive technologies abroad, and Beijing has long described the algorithm as a red line. If China is willing to compromise, it may be because of expectations that Washington, under President Donald Trump, is prepared to offer meaningful concessions. Dexter Roberts of the Atlantic Council's Global China Hub said Beijing may view TikTok as a bargaining lever to extract trade or technology benefits, or even to soften US positions on Taiwan.
If anything changed on the Chinese side that makes them now more willing to do a deal on TikTok, I think it's because they sense that they can get a lot more out of the Trump administration than they originally thought, and they may be contemplating using TikTok as a bargaining lever.
For the White House, the urgency is equally clear. Reports suggest President Trump is eager to finalize a deal ahead of a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to officials, the emerging plan would allow Texas-based Oracle to oversee a licensed version of TikTok's algorithm, retraining it on American data. Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, a vocal supporter of Israel, has expanded his company's role in cybersecurity and cloud infrastructure since the 2023 war in Gaza, adding another layer of political complexity. Still, Beijing has so far described progress only as a basic framework consensus. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs emphasized that any arrangement must comply with Chinese law and reflect the interests of both sides, leaving the most sensitive questions unresolved. Beyond trade and diplomacy, the TikTok negotiations have reignited debate about information control and free expression. Critics argue that the forced sale undermines the First Amendment by placing one of the world's largest social media platforms under political influence. The central security concerns, alleged risks of Chinese propaganda, or data misuse were never definitively proven. Some analysts caution that Washington's approach mirrors Beijing's long-standing insistence on controlling the flow of information within its borders. Jeffrey Towson, a digital strategy consultant, observed that both countries are now embracing what he calls info-nationalism, a model where governments seek to manage digital platforms as strategic control points.
Both the US and China now support info-nationalism. China has long insisted information flows be controlled domestically and not by foreign companies or entities. The US has now come to the same conclusion. Digital platforms create powerful control points. They can shape and limit what can be said, read, and watched.
Others see the potential for modest de-escalation. Hei Tang, director of the Asia Global Institute in Hong Kong, noted that if additional tariffs on Chinese goods were reduced as part of a broader settlement, the economic benefits for Beijing could be significant.
If the current additional 30% US tariffs on China could be lowered, the gain for China would be significant.
Even so, experts warn that the licensing deal may only provide a partial solution. ByteDance's algorithm powers more than TikTok alone, and full disclosure of its workings remains unlikely. As University of Sydney lecturer Chunmizi Su has argued, ByteDance might rather shut down TikTok's US operations than reveal its core technology. For now, the outlines of a settlement remain tentative. Washington and Beijing may both present the agreement as a victory, but the deeper questions about who controls data, algorithms, and the flow of speech are far from settled.